Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Edwin Ragas. I'm the director of the NYU SPS Wasserman Center for Career Development. I'm super excited to kick off today's Violet Ready Skills Academy session. For those who are not aware, NYU Wasserman has compiled 11 Violet Ready skills that employers seek in candidates for success beyond NYU. And so the goal of this series is to showcase our Violet Ready skills in action. So having professionals share their personal experience and tips on developing these skills will hopefully help all of you gain a competitive advantage. So each session focuses on a different skill and industry professional. Before the meeting and in the chat today, we provided a workbook to create a space for reflection and planning. So the learning does not need to stop when the session ends. So feel free to use those how you see fit. So I'll share those again later on in the chat. It's going to be a link to the workbook. So today we have a very special guest who's going to provide action-oriented strategies and discuss their own personal and professional journey in relation to self-awareness. And so after they speak, we're going to have some time for Q&A at the end. So definitely please add your questions into the chat throughout the presentation. So allow me to introduce for our session on self-awareness, which we define as finding success in your personal and professional life, Mike Mannix. So in addition to being an adjunct instructor at the NYU School of Professional Studies, Mike Mannix is an experienced executive board member of a global BPO, utilizing more than 28 years of corporate knowledge to create and administer classes in leadership, management, strategic planning, team building, and business development. He's a very busy person. Mike is currently the co-founder of Unparalleled Performance, a leadership and development practice, and he's also co-author of the 5 L's, The Gift of a Balanced Life. He's super passionate about leadership and the development of future leaders, and committed to the ideal that real leaders are not driven to lead others, but instead they are driven to serve them. So with that, I'm going to stop my share here and give Mike an opportunity to share his screen. And I also just wanted to mention that we have live transcripts that I'm going to enable for anyone who might need that. Okay, so with that, we're going to have 20 minutes or so from Mike to dive into his presentation, and then we'll go into Q&A, but please, everyone, feel free to type in questions in the meantime. So Mike, thanks for joining us, and I'll have you take it away from here.
Great. Well, Edwin, thank you. Well, it is a total honor to be here, and I want to thank everyone for joining me and Edwin in the middle of a day on a Tuesday. We've made it to one more day closer to the weekend, and that's an exciting thing. Thank you, Edwin, for covering all of my background, because it would be very, very boring if I did it for all of you. So we're just going to roll right into it. So let me talk about what I am extremely passionate about, which is teaching and development, and that's why I am now full-time with Unparalleled Performance. Because the 5 L's is something I wish someone gave me 30 years ago. Because one of the things that I did is I was always striving to get that C-level title. I always wanted the things that I didn't have growing up. And, my father always said to me, Mike, it's about changing people's lives for the better. That's true success. And I was like, yeah, Dad, I want all the things that I didn't have, all that kind of good stuff. But at the end of the day, if you push yourself and you do not have balance, you will crash and burn. Please take it from someone who ended up in the critical cardiac care unit at the age of 33, thinking that I was having a heart attack, but had 5 ulcers, 5. And that's because I didn't have balance in my life and I wasn't focused on the right things. So I'm going to take you now through the 5 L's, and looking forward to your questions at the end. So I'm going to start out with a question, because it's not about me. This is about you. If someone could give you the gift of a balanced life, what would that be worth to you? Just think about that for a second. You might think you have a balanced life today, but most of you don't, because you are focused on so many different areas. We're always so overwhelmed with everything going on that we're not focused on the important things in life. So let's take that for a second. So first of all, what are the 5 L's and how can they help me? Well, the 5 L's are basically, so my business partner actually came up with this, 40 plus years ago, when they sent him to Harvard for a global conclave on executive leaders from all over the world, and they were going to solve, how to be successful, right? And they came back with 10 different things at the end of this, and he was like, 10? That's just crazy. 10 is way too much. Let me see if I can get it down to 5, 5 fingers, 5 toes. And, my last name is LaGreca. So, how cool would it be if I could get it down to 5 L's? And when he told me about the 5 L's, I was like, Sal, you've got to write a book. This is fantastic. And he actually asked me to co-author it with him, which I'm doing now. We're hoping to have it out this fall. So I hope you pick up a copy. But this is really, really important stuff. So the first L is love. Okay. Without it, all else fails. So we're going to dive deeper into that. So the second L is laughter. Don't take yourself too seriously. It's about stress management. So you got love, laughter, labor. Okay. Love, laughter, and labor. Labor, meaning it gives you passion and purpose. Love, laughter, labor. The fourth L is leisure. You need to disconnect. You need to recharge your batteries. And the fifth L is leave. Okay. So normally when we do this, you'll see different things in your mind because we're very tactile creatures, right? We're very visual creatures as well, too. So usually when we say the word love, what's the first color that comes to mind? Out of all of our research and through all of the interviews that we did for the book, red is always the number one answer. Okay. So when I say the word laughter, just real quick, what color comes to mind? Don't think about it. What's the first color? Okay. What we've heard is orange, usually a bright, happy color. All right. So love, laughter, labor. Now, what's the first color? We hear all over the board, but generally it's a dark color, like navy blue. All right. So not too many people out there loving labor. All right. So you got love, laughter, labor. Now, leisure. Think of the color that comes to mind. We always hear something like green, and again, more of a happy color. Now, this is the key here. All right. The fifth L, and usually the hardest, leave. Most of the time we hear a dark color, even black, like really not something that is not seen as a positive color. But that's where we need to turn things around. So leave, okay, is being able to change, being able to move on, not necessarily leave a situation, but leave a bad decision, change course, adjust the sails, pivot. Okay. So that's where we're going to go a little deeper. But here's the key with the L's. All right. So first of all, it's all about balance. So if you do this, right, love, laughter, labor, leisure, leave. If you do that with me, okay, have your hand up, 5 L's. If you put both hands together, if you have all L's in balance, that's when everything is working well in your life. It's when you only have one, two of the L's that things fall apart. Okay. So let's go a little deeper. So let's talk about love. When you hear the word love, what's usually the first thing that comes to mind? Well, most of the time it's a relationship, right? Love of somebody else, support of others. That's where we go wrong as leaders, as individuals, as anyone that's trying to be a high performer. Now, the first thing you should think about, so we talked about what all else fails, but the first thing that we should think about is self-love. Now, I know that's a shocker for you. I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm talking about taking care of yourself first. It's called the oxygen mask theory. So what is the oxygen mask theory? Yeah, I know, Mike, we've been wearing masks for a year and a half now, right? The oxygen mask theory is basically this. When you're in a plane, okay, and if a plane goes into distress, an oxygen mask drops from the ceiling. Who do you put it on first? It's not the person sitting next to you. It's you. You can't help anybody else unless you take care of yourself first. Bottom line. I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm talking about taking care of yourself. Self-care is critical. All right. Then it's about love in your life, having healthy relationships, having good friends around you, people that bring you up. You will be as good as the people you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself in the workplace with the negative Nellies and the gossipers and all that good stuff, the people we like to call energy vampires, it will suck the life out of you and it will bring you down. Okay. So you need to have very positive people in your life that help bring you up and that are going to be there for you in the bad times. Also critical for you is, please, if you learn anything from someone who's been in the business world for 30 plus years, I'm only doing now what I love. Okay. 2 years ago when I left, and now I'm doing unparalleled performance because I was, the golden handcuffs. I was going for that big C title. Follow your passion. That will be critical for you every single day. If you do what you love, the money will follow. All right. So let's keep going. So here's a little checklist for you. Number one, every day, put your oxygen mask on you first. Okay, that is critical. Second, forgive yourself for feeling down. There's going to be days when it's just not easy. This last year and a half, do you know the level of depression has skyrocketed? The level of people that are now addicted to something or on medication to deal with depression is at its highest ever. All right. You're human. You're going to have a rough day. Forgive yourself. Communicate with your team. Now, if you are a leader, when you become a leader, anytime there's something going on, you need to communicate with your team. You need to let them know what's going on because a vacuum will create dissent. All right. Show gratitude for something every single day. Scientifically proven that if you are in a bad headspace, if you think of 3 things that you are grateful for, truly grateful for, it changes your brain pattern, puts you in a better headspace. Okay. Moreover, if you're a leader, show your team that you care. That is critical. People don't follow titles, they follow people they know care about them. You can hold team meetings, you can show them that you have their back, make sure that they know their value to the company. Really important. Okay, so let's talk about laughter. Do not take yourself too seriously. And that means don't take life that seriously. We're all so stressed out trying to make everything so perfect. Take it from a type A, okay? Nothing's perfect. You can only control the controllable. So learn different stress management techniques, and laughter is one of the keys to doing that. So now more than ever, people need laughter in their life. Think about this. On average, a baby laughs 300 times a day, 300 times, where an adult pre-COVID laughed only 17. That's a problem, okay? So let's keep going. Learn how to laugh at yourself. To be truly successful, you must be prepared to fail. I know a lot of you out there like, I hate to fail. It gives me a sick stomach. I don't want to do that. Failure is your best teacher. I have learned some of my best learning lessons from failure. Okay, so if I do wish you anything, I do wish you success, but I do wish that you fail because those will be your best learning lessons. Okay, conquer your fear of failure. It's okay. It's okay to be outside your comfort zone. Now, your comfort zone is where you're like at ease. You know, my comfort zone is being on the couch with my blankie and my remote. But if you work out, right? If any one of you work out, if you do light weights all the time and you're easy, that's comfort zone. You're not going to grow. It's when things are really hard and you're really straining to lift that weight, that's when you grow. And it's the same thing in life. Now, there's incredible health benefits with laughter. You're probably like, yeah, Mike, I've heard that before, right? Laughter is the best medicine. Well, here's a little list for you. Tell me if you think it's pretty good. These are all the things that the Mayo Clinic has scientifically proven that laughter does for you. Just a hearty laugh a few times a day. Here's my aha moment. They're now finding that laughter releases certain hormones in the body that helps fight cancer. I don't know anyone who hasn't been touched by cancer. I personally have lost too much to cancer. So my little aha moment, I hope it was one for you as well. So if you're a leader, okay, the leader sets the tone. You need to be a duck on water. And what does that mean? It's about positive energy. We all put off energy. You either put off negative energy or you're putting off positive energy. People want to follow a leader that looks like they're in control. So a duck on water is a duck, cruising along. That's all you usually see. That's the duck on water. But underneath the water, little fins are going like this, right? That means if you're a leader, you need to stay positive. You need to look smooth and in control. Try laughing instead of stressing. I can tell you right now, when I'm in my most stressed out frame of mind, I go into an attitude of gratitude, and then I try to listen to something that makes me laugh. Within seconds, I'm in a better place. Shut off the news and watch something that makes you laugh. The news is all negative. 99.9% of what you see on the TV, other than the weather, is negative, and they do that for ratings, and that's seeping in your brain. So I'm not saying you don't watch the news, but try to limit it. All right. Make sure when you're a leader that your team is doing the same. Gather your extended team and keep it light. But you don't even need to be a leader to be able to do this. Okay. Inject humor into your communications when appropriate. Scientifically studied that people that have a positive attitude actually get more promotions, make more money, climb the ladder faster. Labor. Okay, now this is where everyone's like, oh, labor. I don't like that. Well, I'm going to ask you a question. When I say the word labor, what comes to mind? Is it this or is it this? That's where we really need to take a step back and think about it. It really needs to be on the right-hand side. We're built to work. We're wired to produce. There are studies that show that when people retire, okay, that their health decreases rapidly within less than a year if they don't have something that gives them passion and purpose. So, as humans, we are built to work and wired to produce. So, understanding that, you need to labor on something that gives you passion, that gives you purpose. Do not get caught up by the golden handcuffs like I did. Please do not make this mistake I did. Find something you're passionate about. Go after it. It will change your life. All right. So, what's in it for me, Mike? I know I'm going after my passion and my purpose. Number one, it's your legacy. It's what you're going to leave behind. Two, it will help you with your mental health. Believe it or not, working and staying focused, there are many, many studies that show how that benefits your health if you're not stressing out all the time. Your vision will become your reality. It'll make a positive impact on people's lives if you're doing what you're passionate about. And that is the true measure of success, as my father always said to me. And oh, yeah, it helps pay the bills, that little thing, right? Okay, here's my little bit of advice. Labor on what you're passionate about. Labor on your relationships. If you don't think a relationship needs work, that's your biggest mistake. That relationship will fail. You always have to work at your relationships. And lastly, labor on you. So, all right, Mike, what does that mean? What do you do to invest in yourself? Have you taken a course outside of what you're doing just to continue to grow something new that you haven't learned? You always, throughout your life, and I'm constantly doing it, when you stop growing, you stop succeeding, right? So I'm always trying to learn. Labor on yourself. All right, so number one, you need to show your passion. When you're out in the business world, people that see people with passion, they're like, oh my God, we have to have this person on our team and we need to give them a promotion. We talked about being outside your comfort zone. We're all used to it. It's the new norm now. Set your standards higher and do not settle. What do I mean by that? Your standard is what you're willing to accept and nothing less. All right. If you set your standard here, you'll hit it. Never set your standard low. Set your standard here and go for it. That's what will make you successful once you get out in the workforce. Do not, please, learn from what I did and learn from what my business partner did. Do not let your passion or your work become your obsession, and even worse, how you define yourself. I know too many people that after they've been let go from a company, they've lost their identity. That's how they define themselves. Big mistake. Once you get into leadership, team engagement is priority number one. You got to stay focused on your team. Always try to do in person. Texting is okay, but face to face is the best. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. So if you can't do it in person, like we haven't been able to do for the last year and a half, do a video. Text messaging, all that kind of stuff, not the same. Hold meetings with your teams on a regular basis, set goals and deadlines, and communicate how that their work impacts the overall success of the organization. Really key. Leaders are the people that other people will follow because those leaders have those individuals' best interests at heart and develop them. That's who people follow. And make sure that your team is focused on their balance. All right, we're in the home stretch. We're going to talk about leisure, the fun L, right? But when you think of the word leisure, what do you think of? Do you think of it being lazy, kind of hanging out, not being productive? A lot of type A's like myself saw leisure as a negative. I can't take time off. I have to be producing. I'm going to get that C-level title. I'm going to be in the C-suite. Well, I'm telling you, I got there and I was hollow and I was burnt out. I never took the time that I needed to recharge my batteries. You've got to see it as a positive. It's not a negative. So invest in yourself. You need to see leisure as an investment. There are studies out there that now show that individuals that take more time off, like more than 10 PTO, paid time off days a year, actually are more productive and function higher and make more money and get better promotions because they take the time to recharge their batteries and they bring their best self to work. You take time to recharge this thing, right? You're trying to tell me that your device is more important than you are? Think about that. Return to your comfort zone on a regular basis. Find your me time. What is me time? Me time can be anything you want it to be, but it's that time that you take, even in the middle of the workday, even if it's 10 minutes, to get up, go to a place in your head where you turn everything off, whether it's a walk around the block, it could be reading a book, it could be anything. You need to find that me time, and that will help you manage your stress. I promise you. And now, the Europeans, when they go on vacation, they call it holiday, right? We call it vacation. Vacations can be interrupted. Take it from someone who's always on vacation with this stuck to his face. When a holiday happens, all work stops. Go on holiday when you take your time off. Find your personal holiday. Leisure is even more important during a crisis. You need to be at your best self. You need to look at it as an investment in you. You need to schedule your me time. Put it on your calendar. Put a reminder on your phone. Otherwise, what's going to happen? It's not going to happen. So make sure you find your me time. Exercise is critical. I know I probably lost a bunch of you right now, but exercise really is the key to keeping your mind in a better state. Just Google exercise and the benefits of exercise. I'm telling you, you will find thousands upon thousands of studies that are out there that show how just 20 minutes of cardio or any type of real exercise where you're getting things going and your juices are flowing, it releases endorphins in your brain, it puts you in a better place and physically makes you better. It clears your mind, and clearer minds equal better decisions. And that will make you successful in business. Mandate that your team does it as well when you're managing a team, and make time for the important people in your life, please. I didn't do that for the longest time. I've missed too much. It actually gets me a little choked up right now. The Japanese actually have a word for it, for overwork, working too much. It's called karoshi, and loosely translated, it's overwork death. Think about that. They actually have a word for it. All right, let's talk about leave. All right, I know we're right around 20 minutes, so we're going to cruise through this. So leave, the hardest of all the L's. Do you see it as a positive or a negative? Most people see it as a negative. And why is that? All right, change is scary, right? It is. Why is it so scary? Well, that's because you are programmed that way from prehistoric times. Change back then was danger, and you either had to flight, right, or fight. Otherwise, you're going to get eaten. So that's why we're prehistorically wired to avoid change. We don't like it. We try to stay away from it. But what we found when we did all our interviews is the people that saw leave as a positive and a growth mechanism, that's what catapulted them from a success standpoint. So here's a question for you. Why do people stay in a bad situation or even a bad relationship longer than they should? Ready for this? It's a 4-letter word. Fear. Fear of what? Well, it's fear of failure. We just talked about that. You shouldn't be afraid to fail. You're either learning something or you're succeeding, and you're learning when you fail. Fear of the unknown. Okay, so a lot of people say, whoa, I'm good with this. I know this. I'm not going to go anywhere. That could be worse, right? We call that familiar misery. That is the worst thing that you can get caught up in. If you sit there and say, well, I know this, that could be worse, you are going to hold yourself back, not just in work, but in life. Period. End of story. Fear has two meanings. So you can forget everything and run, or you can face everything and rise. The choice is always yours. All right. So we're in the home stretch of leave. You must embrace it. We've talked about this over and over again. And if I was teaching you this in one of my leadership classes, we'd go into much more depth, but I'm trying to keep it so we have Q&A time. You can only control the controllable, team. That's it. Let the rest go. All you type A's out there, let the rest go. You can't control everything. I know that's hard to swallow sometimes. Once you're, in any type of role and you're trying to make real change, brainstorming sessions are the best tool on how to do that. Off of those brainstorming sessions, everyone puts their ideas out there. You create an action plan. You then make it smart, right? Simple, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And if you want, I can go into more detail that later. And then be prepared to pivot. It's okay. If you made a bad decision, learn to adjust the sails. There's a saying, one of my favorites, man cannot change the direction of the wind, but they can adjust the sails. And that's critical. And always realize that brighter days are coming. Being positive is not being naive, it's being a leader. So thank you so much for your time. I'm going to open it up for Q&A. I'm really excited to hear your questions. If you want to check out my new company, this is our social media. Would love to see it. We put out positive messages every day, a lot of leadership stuff, and a lot of things that might help you with your career. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point, turn it back over to Edwin, and open up the gates.
Thanks so much, Mike. So lots of really interesting stuff there with the 5Ls, and spent some time listening to Mike, and now this is your opportunity as the attendees to weigh in, ask some questions from the expert. Anything that has come up for you, feel free to go ahead and type it into the chat or into the Q&A, and let's get the conversation going. So as folks are doing that, maybe I'll start off and ask Mike, for those of us who we're in classes, we're in jobs, we're in internships. I guess, what is the best way to approach, or where does one start, right, with kind of assessing how to apply this mindset into our current situation?
So that's a great question, Edwin. And I think so coming from someone who didn't have balance in their life, I only had labor. That was a bad thing. And please, team, if anyone has any questions, even outside the 5Ls, I've been in corporate world for 30 plus years. I was an executive board member of a global BPO for 21 of those years, all over the world, all around the globe. Had thousands of people reporting to me. Been in management for a very long time. If you have any other questions, even if outside the 5Ls, please ask. Some people pay a lot of money for an executive coach, so I'm happy to do it for free. But to get back to your question, it's all about knowing oneself. All right. So if you start feeling like really stressed out, you have to take a look in your life of, how do I, number one, prioritize? Prioritizing is incredibly important. So a lot of times people, and I said this in love, when they're prioritizing what's going on, they're putting themselves last. They're not using the oxygen mask there. They're not finding me time that we talked about in leisure. You've got to disconnect from time to time. You need to schedule that, because otherwise we are so bombarded with information and the pressure that is on everyone today, especially the folks that are in college or graduating college or just graduated college, more so than any other generation. The amount of social media that's coming at you, the amount of pressure that's on you to perform, the amount of pressure on you to know what you want to do with the rest of your life at like 20? Are you kidding me? I only figured it out 3 years ago. So you got to take that pressure off yourself. So it's really looking at what's might be missing. Okay. So do you have the right people in your world that are going to support you, that you could pick up the phone and call at 3 a.m. and say, oh my God, I'm stressing out. Can you just listen to me? Right. The love, we talked about that after you take care of yourself, making sure that you are finding ways to deal with your stress, even if it's meditation or exercise and things of that nature. Focusing on something that you love. If you're working on something because your parents are making you work on it, it's not what you love, you're not going to stay with it in the long run. Taking that time off that we talked about, but knowing when to leave. And that could be leaving just to put the work aside. And I say this to my daughter, who is in college, upstate New York, Cornell University. She's stressing out of her mind. She's going into her senior year. She's now interning at Boeing. And I said to her, "Hun, you need to shut off and you need to go spend some time with your friends, because you're going to implode." Because she's literally stressing out. And I think that's the key. A lot of people see anyone who does take time, even a few minutes out for themselves, as someone who's going to get left behind. And actually, if you really take that time off to spend on yourself and recharge your batteries, you're going to be more productive and be more successful, hands down.
Yeah,
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. And there's
Sure.
a one of the questions that just came in. Can you go a little bit more in detail about the period in your life where you were not satisfied with what you were doing, and how did you get out of that?
That's a great question. And how much time do we have? I'll try to give you the condensed Cliff Notes version of it. So I was, and I'll be very candid with everybody. I was with my last company 21 years, and I graduated high school. All I cared about was, oh, my girlfriend and my band. I was in a band. So then I went into college, and I was one of those, undeclared majors. And then all I cared about in college was my fraternity and having fun and all that kind of good stuff. And I came out and wow, I want to be in acting. Yeah. After my parents put me through 4 years of college, I turned to my dad and said, I want to be a full-time actor. And he's like, you took one acting class. What are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to bartend and then get my way through it. So I was kind of kind of finding myself. And when I graduated college, it was actually during a really bad recession way back when. And I'm not going to tell you when I graduated because that's really going to, guys be like, wow, he's old. I actually just jumped into a job that I could get into because there wasn't much going on. I rose through the ranks, and then I left to go to the company that I was with recently for the last 21 years. And I'll be totally honest. And we're in Vegas, guys. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, right? We're right here. I was miserable, and the reason why I did it was because at the time, my then wife was not working, and I had two young kids, and I needed to be the person bringing in the money, and I struggled to make ends meet, and so on and so forth. So I pushed myself, and I started making the money, and that's when my world actually fell apart because uh, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, my father, who was my hero, was taken from me by cancer, and I became a single dad all at the same time. So I was an executive flying around the world, and I had to get my priorities straight. So my kids became my priority. They were my number one priority. And believe it or not, once I had my priorities straight and I was actually focusing on them first and taking the time that I needed to take them, my career actually shot up. So back to your question on how long did it take me to change? Too long, way too long. I was miserable, but I had responsibilities. Didn't know what I wanted to do at the time, and just kept working and working and working and working. And then finally, I did get remarried. I have a little Brady Bunch, which is awesome. I got a wonderful wife who's incredibly supportive. And for me, is once I found that aha moment, which is I want to teach and I want to do it on a global and national scale, I started putting a plan in place, and I did what I called side hustle. So while I had my day job, I was building unparalleled performance with my partner and getting it ready for me to be able to make that transition. And finally, we got it to a place where I was ready to make the jump, and it still wasn't 100% ready. There's a saying out there that goes, sometimes you're building the plane and flying it at the same time. And that's kind of what we're doing right now, and we're getting it off the ground. But I have to tell you, it was that leap of faith, knowing that this was my passion, my purpose, my direction. I wasn't going to be able to control everything, and honestly, I put it in God's hands, and it's been a phenomenal ride. It was a big choice for me to leave, and when I did actually resign, the team was not happy. I reported right to the CEO and the COO of the company. I was running most of the US. They were not a happy camper at all. But it was once I told them that I was following my dream, they actually supported it. So that's really what it took me. But please, as I always say, don't do what I do. Learn from my mistake. I stayed way too long. I did not know when to leave. And it was why? It was because I was fear of the unknown, was scared to make the change, and I let too many things hold me back. And now that I've made the change, it's totally different.
Right. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point in that, there's a framework, but it's not necessarily that people need to follow exactly how you did it, right? It's taking the
Right.
framework and kind of applying it to their own personal circumstances and what that looks like for them. So
Absolutely.
there's another question that came in. Hi, Mike. There's a lot of hype around the importance of having a morning routine. I'm curious about learning about your morning routine and how you incorporate the 5 Ls consistently on a daily basis.
That is a great question. And whoever said that. Thank you. That's awesome. So yeah, there is a lot of hype around a morning routine, and I actually do have a morning routine, and it's really got me in a better headspace, especially when you're launching a business and you're stressed out of your mind, in a good way, but even prior to that. So what I do every morning religiously now is I get up. First thing I do is stretch, not stress, stretch. I don't pick this up for the first half an hour. That's critical because then you've let the world in. And I know a lot of people, and I did this. You're still, in bed and you've got this to your face. You haven't even gotten out of bed yet. You need to put this off to the side. I do my stretching. I drink a lot of water. I work out for a minimal of 20 minutes. And then I try to journal. And then I've actually started meditating because everyone was telling me about you got to do some meditation. It has changed my life. So my head is in a much better space. I'm able to see, when we talk about the 5 L's, really look about, what's missing right now? Where do I need to focus to get my L's in balance? Do I have all of them where I need them to be? And am I focused on the right things? And really kind of, visualizing what I want to accomplish for the day. I even write it down in my book because once it's written, it's in the real world, right? It's no longer just up here. So I find writing something down and journaling actually has made unbelievable changes in my world.
Great. Another one is, how do you not take yourself too seriously? How does one not take themselves too seriously?
Right, especially when you're a type A like myself. And I was always, such a perfectionist. You don't want to, look bad. And you have to learn to laugh at yourself. And that's really hard, especially if you come even, a lot of people are brought up where, you got to be perfect. You got to do it this way, blah, 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 blah. To be successful, you can't make a mistake. Wrong, wrong. You need to fail. Some of my best learning lessons have come from my biggest failures. And were they painful at the time? Yeah. But I actually now teach that to how to avoid it. And it has helped so many people because of it. So it's taking that step back, learning to be, just don't don't focus on what you're doing wrong. Focus on what you're doing right. Pat yourself on the back. A little bit of self-love is not being selfish. You need to be able to laugh. I laugh at myself all the time. My business partner, who's another type A, uh, we're always so focused and we turn at each other. I'm like, dude, you're doing it again. And we both just laugh, right? So you need to be able to not let that in and really realize that if COVID's taught us anything, it's that tomorrow's not promised. It's not. So you got to enjoy life a little bit. Laugh, have fun, take that time out, work on what you're passionate about, take care of yourself and enjoy the moment. I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned in the last year and a half. And stress management tools, just Google it. Stress management tools like meditation, exercise, all that kind of stuff. That's also how I help keep myself level. But I'll still get mad at myself when I make a big mistake. But then I go, all right, Mannix, practice what you preach. Got to laugh at it. And that's what you need to do.
Yeah, that's great. We have, shifting away from 5 Ls for a second, a question
Sure.
around networking. So
Yeah,
the question was, how often should we network? But maybe if you could just expand on your overall best practices and suggestions for networking.
absolutely. And I'm going to tell you all very, very clearly. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And that is the most important thing. If beyond the 5 L's that I could probably impart today. And I learned that very, very early on. So networking, if you're not already on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. It is your key to networking from a professional standpoint. Every time that you meet somebody new and you're in a professional engagement, if you're going to even like some sort of any type of forum that you go to, going online, joining different groups, you need to, anytime you meet someone, share your LinkedIn with them. And then you can see what they're doing, you follow them, and then you start to build relationships. Networking is key. I was I was in many, many different roles. In my old job, I was in HR, I was in operations. As I told you, I ran half the country, but I was also the chief sales officer for too long. Very painful. But the reason why I'm successful, and if you look at my LinkedIn, I've got thousands of people that I'm connected with because that is how important it is. And just so you know, statistically, from a sales perspective, if you look at the ratio of a deal that closes to a deal that didn't close, almost every single time, relationship made the difference between closing the deal or not, right? And networking is incredibly important in that aspect, and it's understanding what individuals like and they do, and being relatable. So for the folks that are going to start interviewing out there now, I highly recommend that when you are interviewing, you look up their LinkedIn, find out their background, find out their interests, and some way, shape, or form when you're doing the interview, work that into the interview. Because here's a little tip, here's a little mind hack: people buy from people they like. End of story. If they like you, they will buy from you every single day. And when you say, well, okay, Mike, I'm not selling anything. Yeah, you are. You're trying to sell how great you are for them to hire you. And especially in a market right now that is so intense because of what we just came out of. And everyone's, trying to flood into the market, and there are not as many jobs as there was, and blah, blah, blah. You need to be able to stand out. So networking, so critical. And it's never a waste of time, if that answers the question. How much time? There's never a waste of time. Put as much time in as you can. It's going to make the difference for you, and it's really going to push you in your trajectory as you move forward in your career. I hope that answers your question, but networking is critical, super critical.
Yeah, and if I could, I want to add and expand to it, right? So it's more than it's not just who you know, but I think it's also who knows you, and
Correct.
right, and
Right. Spot on.
like you said, people like buying from people that they like, right? So
Yeah.
it's not just enough to have that Rolodex or that list of clients, but if you ask those clients what they think of you or if they know you, they should answer the same, right? Um, and questions come up often from students where they say, um, when should I start networking? And something that I'll share is it's never too early, it's never too
Never.
late, and the
Correct.
best networkers they don't really have a timeline. It just happens, right? And you don't have to wait until you are looking for a job or in an active job search to begin that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely. And if you wouldn't mind me tagging on,
Sure.
the one thing I would absolutely say is, when I say people buy from people they like, people buy from people that they trust, right? So when they like you, so be authentic, be your authentic self, because if you're trying to be something that you're not, people will see it, and you'll come across as phony. And I think that has made the real difference for me. I still have hundreds and hundreds of contacts, people that I've known over the last 21 years that I'm still in touch with because we connected on a personal level, right? A professional, personal level, but we did. And that's what makes the difference. Being authentic is really key when you're networking.
Yeah, I want to expand on that a little bit, and it's a nice segue to this next
Sure.
question. Keeping this idea of authenticity in mind,
Mhm.
this person is asking, how can I make people take me seriously and not to be boring at the same time if I'm young? Trying to make sense of that question and piece it together a little bit. But do you understand the gist of what they're saying?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right. So that that's actually pretty funny because I'm assuming what they're saying is I'm trying to make people take me seriously. So I'm going to talk business, and I'm going to be very specific, and I'm going to have all my stats with me. I'm going to be ready, and here's my spreadsheet and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, he's boring. She's boring. Right. So um, I think that's where injecting humor. So, first of all, doing your homework is critical to your success. And what I mean by doing your homework is if you're going to go into a meeting, make sure that it shows that you've done your homework, because even if you do not have the title or you haven't been with the company that long, what it shows is your commitment, and that you're smart, and that you're on it, and that you care. So 90% of success is heart. Okay. And if people are going to take you seriously, if they see that you're a go getter and you're doing your homework and you're on it, that is going to get you credibility. Two is it's okay to be funny, right? Just, be yourself and come across not being boring. You can even make a joke about, yeah, because, me, I'm a type A. I was up all night working on this, and people will laugh at that. Oh, okay. Mike's kind of funny. But yet he's got all this data and he has his stuff ready. So I think that's answering your question. I know a lot of people, and I've had a number of folks that I've taught. So I teach at all different levels: grad, undergrad, continuing education credits, so professionals that are coming back, and that is always a challenge. How do I get taken seriously, and even in my earlier part of my career? And I think it's showing that you're prepared, showing that you know what you're doing, and you know what, going the extra mile. Going the extra mile, really, even if they didn't ask you for it, here's a little trick. If you can take a little something off of your boss's plate, you are golden, because now you've made their job easier. And that makes you valuable to them. And then your level of credibility goes from here to here because, wow, I love this new person. Not only they're doing their job, they're helping me out with mine. Also within your job, if they say go to C, if you take it to D as well, just to show them that final product, people go, wow. It just shows that level of commitment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. And I think part of, the question, right, was around how do I not be taken so seriously and come off as like boring, right? Or like dull and like
Yeah,
no personality. I
right.
think it also has to do with one's skill, and this is learned over time, to tailor how you communicate, right? Tailor to the audience, because the message can be the same, but what
Correct.
you what can be changed is how you deliver it, right?
Absolutely.
If you're talking
Absolutely.
to someone who, if the goal is, you're there to share a status update or a report, right? And you have a supervisor who, they don't want small talk, they just want to know, right?
Yeah,
Then that's how you deliver it, right? And if you have someone who uh, wants a little bit more than just the numbers, then you can adjust, right? And I think
perfect.
it's
Yeah.
being aware of who your audience is and knowing how to communicate whatever the message is that you need to.
I could not agree more. Actually, one of the things that I teach anyone that is in management, or actually not even in management, and you can even do this with your bosses. There's four things that you should always find out if you want to be successful working for someone or having someone work for you. And the first one is, what are you passionate about? What motivates you? Because passion is, what they really, really like. Motivation is how they, function, and how they, like to be motivated and managed. How do you like to be managed? And the last question that you should always ask is, how do you like to be communicated to? Because some people, to your point, are macro. Okay. They just want the big picture. Don't give them a lot of detail. They don't want it. They want bullet points. Boom, 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 boom. Some people are micro. I need to see every line on that spreadsheet and you need to show it to me. So spot on. And when I agree 1,000%, knowing how people communicate and process information is critical.
I'll ask another question. Since we're on the topic of self-awareness, there are lots of people who think they are self-aware, right? And have they think they're like, but then it's almost like, are you looking at the same person because you think you're all of this, but like I don't agree, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what's your take on that, or what's your advice for kind of making sure that how you see yourself is actually correct?
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's such a great question because everyone's perception is their reality, right? So, one of the things that I would always say to a client was, hey, how are we doing? Because it doesn't matter what I think, it matters what you think, right? And so when I was in management too, I always like to create a safe environment for my teams, and I would actually put out little anonymous surveys to say, hey, what do you like? and what could I be doing better? And they truly were anonymous. I had no clue of who it was. It wasn't like they were handwriting and I knew, oh, I know that's John's handwriting. It wasn't like that at all. But I do a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-reflection, and I think that's hard for people sometimes, is to really take that look in the mirror and say, hey, did I do the right thing here, or can I be better at this? And always trying to improve oneself. But I also think it's, if you have those real people in your world that that you trust, those real confidants that have your back, ask them, how do they perceive you? How do they see? They'll tell you if you ask. If you open it up to them, could be friends, could be family. A lot of people won't say anything unless someone goes, no, tell me, what do you think about this, or how do you think I do this, and give me some feedback. I want constructive feedback. And here's the key to that, though: if you ask for it, you got to be ready to take it, and don't get defensive, because then you'll never get it again. So that's how I do it. And I think I probably maybe over reflect a little too much, but I think it's important. I think that's a really important tool.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway there is being able to ask for it, but then to receive it.
That's key. A lot of people don't like to hear it,
Mhm.
but
That's where the growth happens, right? Is
right,
from um, the feedback you get, and then now that you've got it, okay, now what do I do with that? And that's where
right,
the growth happens. Yeah.
absolutely, totally, totally.
So, folks, we do still have a few more minutes. So, if you have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in. I'll throw in another one, Mike. I guess, is there, going back to the 5 Ls, is there one that people, and maybe you kind of touched on this earlier, the, um, I guess, what's the lowest hanging fruit, right? Of what's the easiest L to kind of embrace and tackle, and what is the one that people kind of struggle with the most in figuring out how it fits into their life?
Sure, that's a really awesome question. I'm gonna kind of flip it around a little bit. The hardest L for everybody is usually leave. Being able to deal with change, being able to deal with the unknown, embracing change. That is the one that we've seen, again, through all of our research and our interviews. That is the one that we see is the hardest L for people to embrace. The one L that can be a trap, which is easy, because you said which is the easiest, or low hanging fruit, which is the easiest to fall into, is labor, because people just throw themselves into it, and it's what I need, and I know how to do it, and I'm good at it. So they focus on that too much, and they don't focus on the other L's, which is important. One of the other L's that is hard, which you wouldn't think would be, so love is actually an easy L if you focus on relationships, but it's hard to make time for yourself and the self-love. That's where people really don't um, grasp it until it's actually pointed out to them. What are you doing for you? What have you done for you today? Have you helped you? Obviously, people love leisure. I mean, that's cool, but do you really shut off? And do you really take that leisure time? That's, I think, important. But definitely by far, leave is the hardest. And I think too easy to fall into the trap of labor. But love, people always generate too. And I have to tell you, when we were doing our interviews for the book, everybody was like focusing on love. I started to sound like we need stuff for the other else, because everyone loves love. So that's I think that's really important. But if you look at the way they're sandwiched, the two, love and leave, are the two most impactful on your life. Right? They're the two of the hardest. So they almost are sandwiching the others as well. Like love controls everything, drives everything. Leave is the hardest, and they're two of the most prevalent of the L's. And it's just interesting how they're two. It's yin and yang, opposite sides of the spectrum, right?
Great.
Any
So,
other
Mike,
questions?
I think that's it for us. But
Great.
before I close off with next steps from here, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of just wrap us up. Any, last words of wisdom or advice and things like that that you'd want to make sure to impart on our attendees today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I can't thank you enough for having me. This is a true honor, and anytime I get to spend time being able to show folks, what I've learned in my, 30 plus years of making mistakes and how to, give them the tools that I wish someone gave me 30 years ago is truly important. I think the most important thing, if anything came across today, is number one, you got to you got to take care of yourself, especially now. Don't think that you have to have it all figured out today. I know there's a lot of pressure out there to think you have it figured out. Life is a journey. Literally, you're going to change jobs multiple times. Might change directions multiple times. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. Too many of us just are stressed out all the time because it is just, of everything going on. You got to enjoy the ride. You got to take that time out with the people that you care about to enjoy it. Take time out for yourself and enjoy yourself and your time off, and really take that time off and, attack life with passion and purpose. And I can tell you for myself personally, when I'm teaching, which is my passion, everyone's like, "Oh my God, your energy." I'm like, "Yeah, because I love what I'm doing." When I was doing my old job, they're like, "Are you okay? You having a bad day?" I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" Because I didn't love what I did. I was good at it. I didn't love what I did. So you can really see it. So stay focused on your balance. Stay focused on your physical health, your mental health, your personal health. That's what's going to make you successful in the world. Once you go out into the business world, it's going to change. It's going to be dynamic. But if you're not taking care of you, you will crash and burn. I did it. You got to take care of yourself first. Otherwise, I know you think you're immortal in your 20s. I did. It can change really, really quick.
Great. Thanks for those last words, Mike.
Sure.
So before we end, folks, you probably noticed in the chat, I put a few links in. So there's a link to a very brief, 1-minute survey. If you could take that, we'd really appreciate it. This is a new series that we've rolled out, and definitely looking for feedback to enhance this experience for everyone. There's also a link to a workbook that we've put together for the entire series. So it'll give you an opportunity to reflect on the 5 L's and come up with some ways for how you can apply those and start to find that balance in your own personal and professional lives. So we hope all of you enjoyed today's session. Our upcoming topic and speaker is resilience, and that's with Katie Apicella. She's the founder of 99 Bespoke, which is a lifestyle management company, and that's next Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. And so you can go ahead and register for that via Handshake. As a reminder, this session or this series runs every Tuesday at 12:30, and so when you go on Handshake, you can see what else is coming up. So thank you. Oh, there is a question. Is there a way that you can view sessions that you've missed? Yes, there is if you go to the Wasserman blog, there is a list there of you'll see all of the recordings of previous ones. So thanks again to Mike Mannix for carving out some time to be with us today and providing such honest and thoughtful insights. Perfect timing. The sirens are in my background. I think that's the time to go. So thanks everyone, and thanks Mike, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thanks everyone. Have a great week. Thanks, Edwin. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care. Bye.